Hello everyone, this is Fadi, and I'd like to welcome you back to a continuation of this new apologetic series on the Divine Son of Man of the Book of Daniel. In the previous episodes, we demonstrated that from the Old Testament all the way to the New Testament, the Jews understood clearly that the Son of Man of Daniel in Daniel 7 verses 13 to 14 has to have been the awaited Messiah. And basically, just whether they accepted Jesus or not, that has been their understanding. And we showed that the high priest was outraged in Mark chapter 14, verses 60 to 64, when Jesus confirmed to him that he is that Son of Man of Daniel. In other words, they were expecting the Messiah, but as the king, the Davidic king, not someone who is, in their view, was going to be crucified, was going to die, was looking mediocre, was looking weak and meek according to their understanding, according to what they're observing. Because in their understanding, they missed the point that in Isaiah 53, clearly, the Son of Man, who's also called the servant or the suffering servant, is going to suffer for the sake of his people. So, all that to say is that today we're going to continue with a survey from the New Testament showing examples where Jesus applied the Son of Man title to himself, but it may appear on the surface that he is talking about his humanity, but oftentimes there is also, in the same context or in the same gospel or in the same book that Jesus was making that reference to, indicate his divinity as well as the Son of Man. So we're going to show that the Son of Man title, for instance, is connected with Jesus' earthly life and earthly ministry. For instance, if we go to Matthew chapter 8, verse 20, the one that you're seeing right now on the screen, this is what Jesus said to someone who said, I want to follow you. He says, the foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Now, so far, Jesus is talking about humility and humbleness here. But let me tie this to another incident where Jesus talks about his meekness as well, but in a very powerful way where his divinity is clearly established. If you go to Matthew 11:27, leading to 28 and 29 that you see in front of you, Jesus made a clear statement in Matthew 11:27 that no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and whomever the Son chooses to reveal him to. That is an important statement and an astonishing statement, actually, that a mere man can say he knows the Father, that's God, and God knows him, and the Son, in this case Jesus, has the power to reveal the Father and exegete the Father and made him known to whomever he elects to do so. And then he proceeded to say the following in Matthew 11:28 to 29. He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That's amazing. He's talking about sin and sinful people, that if you come to me, basically, I will take your burden from you and I will give you an eternal rest. And on top of this, you don't have to worry about doing the law because I've already covered and fulfilled that. As a result, all you have to do is, the next clause, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am, here we go, gentle and humble in heart, meek and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Does this sound like a Son of Man in the same book, basically? Does this sound like a Son of Man who is just a mere human person? Does this sound like a person, a prophet, that cannot really do anything to you? Or does this sound like a divine person who have the ability to remove your sin and give you eternal rest? That's basically the struggle here in the mind of our Muslim friends and others who deny this. And we ask them to wrestle with this. Look at Mark, for instance. In Mark chapter 2, verses 1 to 12, it talks about Jesus going to teach at a house. Many, believe that was the house of Peter in Capernaum. And crowds, of course, were everywhere. The house was filled up. Everybody wants to hear the teaching of Jesus, watch his miracles. And then a paralytic needed to come for healing, and his friends brought him basically on a stretcher. They couldn't find a way to enter through the door, so they removed basically parts of the roof and they lowered him. And it says that Jesus, seeing their faith, said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Notice, this is Jesus. He's saying, "I have the power to forgive your sin." That's in Mark 2:5. Immediately, the Pharisees were troubled by this, and they said in their heart, "Who is this man that is blaspheming against God? For only God can forgive sins." Rightfully so. Only God can forgive sin. But if Jesus was just a mere man, he wouldn't have been able to do something like this. Then, in verse 10, it says, "But so that you may know that the Son of Man," this is Jesus is talking, "so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the paralytic. Jesus is saying, "I know what you're thinking." In fact, that's what it says. In his spirit, he knew what was going on in their mind, indicating that Jesus, the human in front of them, is omnipresent. He knew what all of them were thinking. Omniscient, omnipresent, he's everywhere, and omniscient knew what that was going on in their heart because they did not verbalize it, basically. And now he's going to prove that he's omnipotent. He says, just to prove to you that the Son of Man has authority on earth. What does that mean, on earth? Meaning, I have authority in heaven, God in heaven, to forgive sin. But now, as I came to earth, I still have the same authority. So to prove to you that his sins are forgiven, look what I'm going to do right now. So he said to him, "I say to you, get up, pick up your pallet, and go home." And he got up and immediately picked up the pallet and went out in the sight of everyone. Why did Jesus do this? For a simple reason. Jesus played with their worldview and mindset. They, the people of those days, especially religious authorities, assumed that this man is a paralytic or paralyzed, if you wish, because either he sinned or his parents have sinned, or there is a sin on him, a judgment upon him. Jesus says, "No, I removed the judgment. I forgave you." To prove to you that the judgment has been removed, he's going to start walking now back and being normal. And that's what Jesus did to prove that. But he said this statement so that you may know that the Son of Man have authority on earth to forgive sin. You see, the Son of Man figure, Jesus applied it to himself, indicate his divinity as well. Next time, we'll explore other passages to show you that Jesus always applied the Son of Man title to himself, not just to declare his humanity, but also his divinity. Thank you for watching, and God bless. Thank you for watching. Please like our video, and we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, CIRA International. And be sure also to click the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we upload new videos into the channel. And finally, I like to prayerfully encourage you to become a patron through Patreon. Your giving is much needed and will enable us to produce more and more of videos like this so that we can publish them on a weekly basis. So thank you in advance.